In this lesson, we are going to look at an assembly. What is an assembly? An assembly is it's a self-describing package of a functionality. It has different types of metadata that relate to an application or to an assembly itself, that you can get within an assembly. For example, within an assembly, you are able to tell when the application was created or when the assembly was created, when who created the application, and what version of the application you are looking at, and you are also able to actually tell or define the set of types that are defined within that self-describing package of functionality. The formal definition of an assembly is that it's a self-describing it's a self-describing package of functionality. So now let's look at the two types of assemblies that are available in .NET. In .NET, there are two types of assemblies. We have got the .dll assemblies, which is basically dynamic link library. So this one is basically a set of types that cannot be directly opened. Instead, these are basically libraries of types that provide a certain functionality. So you take them and import them within your executable application, your executable assembly, which is basically our second type of assembly. This one it's an executable. So when you see a file like this one in Windows, you are able to directly open that file by double clicking it or by actually accessing it through the menu. So this one is an executable file. So this one is a library of functionality. So you import the functionality that is provided within the types that are defined within these types of assemblies into these assemblies to make use of that functionality. So otherwise, you cannot directly open this type of assembly by double clicking it, or you cannot be able to access it through the start menu in Windows. Hope that makes sense. So these are the two types of assemblies that we have in Windows. So what is the difference between them? Beyond that, this one it's basically a library of types, and this one is an executable. You can access it by double clicking it or through the start menu. The difference is that this one, it has as one of the types that you will find within this type of assembly, has a special method called an entry point, and the name of that entry point, it's called the main method. One of the type within the set of types defined within that assembly has to define this main method. This main method, it's basically an entry point. It's where the CLI, which is the runtime component of the .NET framework, is going to enter and begin executing your application. So this type of assembly do not have this type of a method. It does not have this type of a method. So it's a dynamic link library. So that means the CLR will never enter into that. It will never directly be able to execute this type of assembly. Instead, it's going to this type of assembly is going to be imported within these ones. Does that make sense? So how do we get these assemblies? So it depends on which type of assembly do you want to create here. So let's say, for example, we are writing an application. Okay, let's look at this way. We write an application using a text editor like Notepad, and within Notepad we write a code following the language that we are using, the syntax of the language that we are using to write our application. Does that make sense? So we use a text editor like Notepad, or we could be using a sophisticated IDE such as Visual Studio